There came a man, unfortunately from Georgia, who went to the Sunday school board and he announced that he was going to overturn all of this stuff. Well, when that cover issue came out, he came out with the order to remove it. He wanted all the publications destroyed, and Southern Baptists went livid. There were editorials in the state papers, the associational papers. There was so much flack against it that that man had to resign, and he went back to the little rural church in Georgia that he had been pastoring. So there were so many people for it and moving in that direction that there was no turning back. This was the way for the future. Apostle Paul's letters came to mean a lot to me, especially his letter to the church at Philippi in chapter 3, where he indicates that the most precious thing for him was to know Christ and to be a part of the fellowship of his suffering. There were times when there were bomb threats if we were going to be in a certain meeting, a racial meeting. There were times when I was invited to speak in white gatherings that I had to have security, but those were minimal. I think it may have happened maybe 4 or 5 times in 23 years.
Further in this Sermon on the Mount in chapter 6, Jesus says you can't serve 2 masters. You can't be double-minded. You can't have your loyalty split. You've got to either serve God or to serve the world. And serving the world does not necessarily mean serving sin. It simply means dividing your loyalty. Sometimes the mammon that God refers to, that Jesus refers to, can become a master for us. The acquisition of power, the acquisition of fame, the quest for recognition, that can be something that robs God of having first place in our lives. Jesus says it can't be.
The classes that I took were taught by people who had been missionaries. And so we were caught up in an environment of what do we do to make the gospel real and alive here in America? How do we reach people? That was our forte, and fortunately, we had administrative leadership that gave us freedom. We had the freedom to do anything that we would be responsible for. Now, we had to own up to our involvement in anything we did, but we weren't pinned up or told you can't do this, you can't do that. The only thing we couldn't do was outside of the bounds of what it meant to be a committed Christian. Other than that, we were free to do all kinds of creative things, and we did. In fact, some of us, nostalgically, I'm not sure how you want to characterize it, we looked at those years between 1965 and 85 as the golden years of Southern Baptist life. My first international trip was to Ghana. The convention president that particular year was a layman named Owen Cooper from Yazoo City, Mississippi, one of the best friends I've ever had. Cooper was interested in how our missionaries were being perceived, especially in Africa. So it was arranged for me to go over and spend a month. And during that month, I was to do a citywide revival in Kumasi and then teach at the seminary over there for 2 weeks and spend a week visiting and talking with the nationals and missionaries, and that was all interspersed. We did some of all of that all the time. That was a great experience for me. My first time being in Africa, the first time seeing Africans or seeing black people down on the tarmac handling the plane or having stewardesses that were black. It was a brand new experience for me, but also being in a different country, accepting the fact that I was not in America anymore and I had to scale down my expectations. The places where we lived were different. The foods that I ate were different. And I came to love them, though, came to get used to them. The having the question asked, are you CIA? Because anybody that was there from America, it was assumed was a CIA agent. I also had from the Africans, I had the question thrown at me quite often. We see the whites who are here as missionaries. Where's the blacks? How come you all haven't come over and are not interested in us?
When our loyalties are divided, it's as though the vision was blurred, as though we have two eyes looking in two opposite directions at the same time, and you cannot focus, you cannot see. Jesus says the person who is healthy is the person who has singleness of vision, the person who has his mind stayed on Jesus, whose loyalties are given towards Christ.
Discipling meaning Bible study, training, helping people discover their gifts and giving them opportunities to use those gifts. That was probably the greater contribution that I think I made at Christian Fellowship. We had 52 different ministries going on, and it was discovering people who had some talent they didn't even know they had or had never had opportunity to use them, and helping them to use those gifts, helping them to have a vision that the church isn't about my coming every Sunday just to sit or to be a bench member, but a vision of being a part of something greater, and that something greater is what God is doing. And since we don't know what God is up to next, watching, praying, seeking to find out what God is up to, and then moving to join God in what He's doing. Because I've done some of everything, and I've not done it, looking for something. I've done it because it was there to be done, and I felt it as a part of my calling. So I'm really just glad I've had the chance to serve, and I can't think of any one thing that I would put above anything else. Everything that I've done, I've tried to do in service to God, and it's been a wonderful pilgrimage. I have no regrets.
I simply try to be single-minded, to love the Lord our God with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my mind, with all my strength, and leave the rest to Him.